So week one of the college football season has come and gone and all the excitement that comes with it. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So welcome in. This is Locked On Northwestern, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Carter Bird, and thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We are available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. You can pretty much find us. We're also on YouTube. Just look up Locked On Northwestern. You can find us. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. But yeah, let's get into it. I mean, obviously Northwestern didn't play this week because they played in week 0, so they had the week off. But this was week 1 of the college football season. Excitement everywhere. Everybody else got their season kicked off besides those that started in week 0. It was games wall to wall, chaos everywhere, a little bit of everything. I mean, you had big games. You had games that weren't supposed to be big that turned out to be big. You even had a few upsets in there, and that's what college football is about. When that foot finally gets to meet leather on the opening kickoff, just all that buildup, all that time without football, it just builds, and then right then and there, the excitement it exudes from everything in college football, from the teams, the fan bases, the stadiums, sometimes the announcing crews if it's Gus Johnson. But yeah, I mean, when you have a Saturday, when you have a weekend like this, you get craziness everywhere, and it started on Thursday. I mean, you had that Pitt West Virginia game that was awesome. You had that Penn State Purdue game that was crazy, and I'll mention it again very briefly when we talk about the Big Ten here in a little bit. But when you look around the country in this week 1, let's look at the big games around the country and just kind of recap what really happened. Well, first, you had a top 11 matchup in Atlanta. Oregon came across the country to take on the defending national champions, number 3 Georgia. And yeah, number 3 Georgia, well, that's how many points Oregon came all the way across the country to score. They got embarrassed. 49-3, 46-point loss. They've gotten smoked in their last 3 games. I think it's something like 125 to 20 in their last 3 big Power 5 games. They've played Utah twice. And they've played they played Utah twice, got smoked in both those, and Georgia. Georgia really scored the ball at will, which is a little bit surprising because that Georgia team last year, they were known for their defense. The offense was they asked Stetson Bennett to be a game manager. Well, Stetson Bennett had 368 and 2 touchdowns against what's supposed to be a strong Oregon defense. So, you have first-round draft picks on that Oregon defense. It was a little surprising to see them get dominated the way they did. Kenny McIntosh looked pretty awesome, 135 total yards. He looks like a guy who's going to be a problem and maybe will make a lot of plays for this Georgia team. You know about that tight ends room at Georgia. They're so good. But Georgia smothered Oregon's offense. You had 8 guys leave for the NFL, and they didn't skip a beat. I mean, they gave up just 313 total yards. 2 Bo Nix interceptions. I mean, it was a thorough beat down in that game. Well, my second takeaway from the week was, look, if you are a Power 5 team and you are playing in week 1, quit scheduling in-state road games against G5 teams that are pretty capable and solid. It's a recipe for disaster. The ACC was doing it all over the place this week, and it bit one of them. It almost bit the other 2. Va-Tech went on the road to Old Dominion on Friday and lost 20-17. That's a game that Va-Tech should never, ever lose, and it's a game that can really help this Old Dominion program as it's fairly new to the FBS. It's building, and that's a tough one for Vatech to lose. Then on Saturday, NC State goes on the road to ECU. NC State, a team that a lot of people think is going to make the college football playoff. A lot of people think could win the ACC, like I do. Well, they went on the road to ECU, and if it wasn't for ECU having an awful kicker that missed a field goal and an extra point, they would have won the game. NC State survives 21-20. Then finally, maybe the stupidest game that happened all day. The stupidest game. UNC goes on the road to App State. And App State is really good. We all know App State. No shocker there. No shocker that they could at least keep it close. 63-61, though? What happened to Gene Chizik as a defensive coordinator? The man's supposed to be a great defensive coordinator, and he's given up 24 to FAMU in the first week when FAMU only had 7 offensive linemen dress out, and they said it was unsafe due to how many players were ineligible. And this week, you're giving up 61 to App State. Some of the coaching there doesn't make sense. The onside kick, return it for a touchdown, then give the ball back to App State. They go down and score and almost tie the game. Nothing about this game was pretty. It looks like UNC is going to have to score 1,000 points every game in order to win. Well, at least they have Drake May, who looks freaking awesome through 2 weeks. They're 2-0, and he's had to carry that corpse of a UNC team to victory twice against teams that UNC should beat right now. Well, the game that just finished earlier tonight, I'm recording this at 1 in the morning. LSU loses what? 20, I think it was 24-23. Yeah, 24-23 on a blocked extra point. But it was a game that FSU kind of dominated. It felt like it was not as close as 24-23. FSU had the ball to 1 yard line, and rather than both teams didn't want to win. Let's be honest. Both teams didn't want to win. Both teams were doing dumb, stupid stuff. Both teams looked really bad. But FSU was still dominating the game and should have won the game easily. Ball on the 1 yard line, up 7, minute 20 left. Knee it out, make them use the timeouts. Instead, you fumble, and they go 99 yards, score on you with no time left, and you get bailed out because they got a freshman tight end on the left side who doesn't understand to step up on field goal protection and chase the guy way out here, and you block the extra point. Both teams are bad, but it's still a big win for Norvell at FSU. And man, LSU, this looks awful. And the schedule gets brutal because you get Mississippi State, who looks good, at Auburn, who knows. Then you get Florida, who looks a lot better. Tennessee, who looks good. You get Ole Miss, who Lane Kiffin. Then you get Alabama, Arkansas, and A&M. 3-9's on the table for LSU. Just keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on it. It could be something that goes. If they go 3-9, and keep in mind their last G5 game, they have Southern and New Mexico, 2 wins there. Their last G5 game is in a stretch of Alabama, at Arkansas, UAB, and at A&M. Don't count out UAB because UAB has a history of winning in Death Valley. All right, but they look awful. Brutal schedule. Good win for FSU. Special teams was abysmal for Brian Kelly. The coaching looks awful. The culture looks bad. You've got Keishawn Butte, who's a first-round draft pick in this year's NFL draft. He touched the ball one time the whole game, and then you after the game, he takes all the stuff off social media, connecting him with LSU, along with the punt returner as well. Things already look bad in LSU, and I don't think they're going to get better. They have a real shot at 3-9, an outside shot at 2-10. Would love to see what the people in Baton Rouge would do if LSU started like that. All right, so the big upset, Florida at home beat number 7 Utah. Because Utah couldn't punch it in on the goal line. Florida had 2 goal line stands. Unbelievable effort by them. Anthony Richard drugged that team to a win. drugged them to a win. 168 passing yards, 106 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Florida can run the football now. They got a lot of talent there. Brant Kuth looked awesome for Utah. He had a huge day. Tavion Thomas was great running the ball at over 100 yards for Utah. Utah can control the line of scrimmage, and Utah can look good on offense. You like to see a little more out of Cam Rising. Cannot throw that pick on the goal line. You're going to win the game. Take care of the football. Don't know what you're seeing. You're staring down guys in inside the 5-yard line. That's a recipe for disaster. Arkansas took down Cincy 31-24. KJ Jefferson looks awesome. 285 yards, 4 touchdowns. Rocket Sanders looks awesome. 117 yards rushing. Cincy asked for a lot. Desmond Ritter's not there anymore. New quarterback. Made him throw it 43 times. Probably a tough ask. Cincy's going to be good. Cincy's going to be really good. They lost to a good Arkansas team. Arkansas is going to be dangerous, especially in the SEC. It could be a dark horse to challenge Alabama, maybe. Houston survived a triple overtime game against UTSA, game that shouldn't have been 3 overtimes, but was. 37-35. Houston had to outscore them 17-3 in the fourth quarter to force OT. And UTSA won, 11 games last year? They're a great program, or they're a building program. And Jeff Traylor might be the second best coach in the state of Texas. Clayton Tune looked good for Houston, 257 yards and 4 touchdowns. Frank Harris balled for UTSA, 410 yards, 4 touchdowns. They had a couple 100-yard receivers and then another guy who had 2 touchdown catches. I mean, that was an exciting game. But those are the games that nationally kind of jumped out to me as they played out. Just a second, we're going to take a look at the Big Ten because that has a little more interest or a little more direct connection to Northwestern. And because Northwestern wasn't playing, I mean, I'm sure they got to watch plenty of their conference rivals take on teams, and some took on each other. And that's going to be what we look at here in a second. But first, if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you're depriving yourselves of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light and chewy texture. Real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're 100% real chocolate. All of the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run to built.com to snag your box for you and the family. It'll be the perfect treat, or you can really find a good hiding place and hoard them for yourself. Like all Built bars, the new cookie dough chunk puffs is 100% covered in real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. So good. What's great about Built is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which absorbs in your body more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You're going to love cookie dough chunk puffs. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKEDON15. All right, so now that we've talked about the national headlines, probably ran a little long there, but we're going to talk about the Big Ten. Obviously, the game that got everything kicked off, the headliner on that Thursday game was that Penn State-Purdue game. Penn State 35, Purdue 31. Jeff Brom blew it. Throwing the ball, ran the ball one time, last 3 drives with a freaking lead. Abysmal. Aiden O'Connell looks good. He really does. Sean Clifford is the same guy who's been there for 6 years. He's not that great. He's still an average quarterback. Make him beat you. Because they can't run the football. They can't run the football still. And that's going to be an issue for them as they continue. They don't look good. Neither team really impressed me. Aiden O'Connell is good, but man, his coach doesn't know how to handle the late game stuff. Minnesota 35 over New Mexico State. Only headline here I had was Ibrahim is back. 21 carries for 132 and 2 touchdowns coming off an Achilles injury, I believe. The guy's a stud. He's probably only going to get better the more reps he gets. He's going to be somebody to watch out for in the Big Ten just because he's been there for a while and he's been awesome every time he's out there. Michigan State 35, Western Michigan 13. Peyton Thorne was like 4 touchdowns, jumps out at you, but 50% completion percentage and an interception. I don't really know what to think about him. Jalen Berger, the heir apparent to Kenneth Walker, 16 carries for 120 yards on a touchdown. Strong game out of him in the opener. Next up's Indiana 23, Illinois 20. Connor Bazelak, transfer from Missouri. Pretty meh. IU can't run the football. I had Sean Shires, the transfer from Auburn. He didn't run the ball anywhere in that game. He's not good at catching the ball in the backfield, despite what every coach will try to tell you. Shaky hands at best. IU had Cam Camper and DJ Matthews Jr. combined for 18 catches for 265 yards and a touchdown. So they got some dudes on the outside. Got a pretty meh quarterback and a pretty bad run game. A brutal run game, to be exact. Illinois, Tommy DeVito, similar to Bazelak, pretty meh performance, like not that impressive. Isaiah Williams for them had a great game, 9 receptions, 112 yards, 1 touchdown. But the story here is Chase Brown. I mean, dude is a stud. He's going to be somebody who is going to have a huge year. 36 carries, 199 yards. As long as he stays healthy with that kind of usage, I mean, he has a real shot to lead the Big Ten in rushing yards. Illinois had 3 fumbles and an interception. That's what probably allowed them to lose the game. They did get robbed. They had a ball that was a touchdown catch. Guy gets up to celebrate, drops the ball, and the refs somehow say it was incomplete and reviewed it, and it stood, I believe. They got to feel like they got robbed, and they should be sitting there, 2-0, I believe. Then the big one was the top 5 matchup. Ohio State 21, Notre Dame 10. Number 3 versus number 5. Grinded out win for Ohio State. And you saw Ryan Day post-game talk about it. I mean, everybody talks about the quarterbacks. Everybody talks about the receivers with Ohio State. Well, they got a little banged up. They're a little short-handed. And they said, you know what? We're going to play good defense. We're going to play great defense, especially in that second half. And we are going to run the football. And they found Mayan Williams to kind of be the physical back next to Travion Henderson. And those 2 guys kind of carried them to a not the score you would have thought from Ohio State, not the offensive firepower, but they showed that they can get big, get physical, and just go win a smash mouth football game, which is something they haven't had to do in a while. If they have that club in the bag, it'll be interesting. It'll be really hard to beat. Defense looks a lot better. Stroud was fine in the game. I mean, he was good, but he's CJ Stroud. You almost expect more out of him. And so maybe that's why I'm kind of on it right now. Michigan 51, Colorado State 7. Pretty ho-hum. Nothing sticks out. Nothing's crazy about this game, really, other than the fact that Jim Harbaugh's a whack job, that his non-conference schedule is so bad that he's able to openly say he's starting one quarterback one game and he's starting the other one in the other game. So today was Cade McNamara's game. Not great. Nothing that was that impressive. And then you'll see the younger guy take the field next week. Drawing a blank on his name, but JJ McCarthy. Sorry. Next up, Wisconsin 38, Illinois State 0. Great defensive showing, really. I mean, but that's what you come to expect with Wisconsin teams year in and year out. Braylon Allen looks strong, 14 for 148 and 2 touchdowns, about as strong of a performance as any back had in the Big Ten. Is it something to build on from Mertz, or is this another one of those mirages like that first game where he started, 14 of 14, his first start? He was 14 of 16 for 219 and a touchdown. Really want to see him do something like that against a really good defense and not Illinois State before I buy back in. Um, but yeah, I mean, it'll be something to keep an eye on. I don't know. I don't know what to think about him. I don't think he's that good. He's never really impressed me other than that first start, and then everybody put him in the Heisman race. It was very similar to Kenny Hill at Texas A&M, who lit up South Carolina in the opener. Everybody loved him, threw him in the Heisman race, and then that was that. But yeah, and then just a second, we're gonna look at the rest of the games of the Big Ten, and then also Northwestern's Week 2 opponent. So that's coming up in just a second. And we're going to start there with Iowa 7, South Dakota State 3. And I know what you're thinking. Wow, only a touchdown for Iowa. That's pretty bad. That's an awful offensive performance. Well, what if I told you it was way, way, way the heck grosser than that? Maybe the grossest game I've ever watched. And I grew up in a family that watched the 3-2 Auburn Mississippi State game back in 07. Iowa's offense sucks, to put it candidly. They have an offensive coordinator who is the son of the head coach and is not good at his job. Spencer Petras is awful, legitimately awful. Probably one of the worst quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Definitely in the conversation for it. They cannot run the football. And when Iowa cannot run the football, the offense is miserable. Well, they had 166 total yards against an FCS team. That's how bad it was. They had 2 safeties to win the game, a field goal and 2 safeties. Yes, that is how they got to 7 points. It is abysmal. It is awful. At least the defense looked good. Gave up like 120 yards or something. But this Iowa team is going to be horrendous if they can't move the ball on offense. It's that bad. They have a bad quarterback. They have a bad run game. They don't have anything good on offense. And they might get smoked by a lot of teams in the Big Ten this year, including Northwestern. Next up, Maryland 31, Buffalo 10. Talia, pretty meh game for him. Nothing that really jumped out to you. Roman Hemby, the running back for Maryland, kind of went nuts in this game. 7 for 114 and 2 touchdowns. Pretty dynamic game right there on not very many touches. Raheem Jarrett had 6 catches for 110 yards. He's the go-to guy out on the edge. Maryland, it'd be interesting to see what Talia does this year. Can he build on the progress he made last year, or does he kind of stagnate out? Does he potentially take a step back even? I want to see him. I want to see more of him, especially before Northwestern, because Northwestern gets Maryland after a bye. And that's a game that I have circled as the second swing game on Northwestern's schedule, along with the Nebraska game that they already won. So I want to see more of Talia, and it's going to be interesting. Next up, Rutgers 22, Boston College 21. Rutgers can't throw the football. Rutgers can run the football. They've got like 15 guys who can run the ball, but they can't throw the ball. So if you can stop the run, you got a really good chance to beat them. They ran for like 270 yards in this game. They threw for like 80. It was bad. They have a good run defense. They shut down Boston College's run game, and Boston College threw for like 286, ran for like 28 or something stupid. They can run the ball. If you stop the run, I don't know if those quarterbacks can win games for Rutgers. Finally, in the Big Ten, Nebraska 38, North Dakota 17. Tell you what, I had this one circled because I thought it was a weird spot for Nebraska. And North Dakota hung in there 17-17 at half. Yeah, kept watching it. You kept keeping an eye on it. And Nebraska finally put them away. Good for them. They needed to. Because God forbid what would have happened if Scott Frost lost to an FCS team the week after losing in week 0. Yeah, it'd be probably an interim coach on Monday, but they hung on. Anthony Grant might just be awesome. He had 23 carries for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns. Second straight game with 100 yards. He might be one of the better running backs in the Big Ten. But then again, the Big Ten's full of good running backs, so it's interesting. Also, Nebraska continues to drop the ball like crazy, which is not ideal for this team that wants to keep their coach around. Maybe they do. I don't know. Remains to be seen. And then finally, we're going to talk about Duke versus Temple, because that is the opponent this week for Northwestern. Duke 30, Temple 0. Duke showed up and had 500 yards of offense in this game. Little surprising. They also had a really good defensive showing, only allowed 179 yards. The new Duke quarterback, Riley Leonard, had a strong game. He was 24 of 30 for 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, had 11 rushes for 64 yards, was the leading passer and the leading rusher. And then the defense looked very improved. Only allowed 3.05 yards per play. They recovered a couple fumbles. This Duke team looked a lot better than the FPI 119th team coming into the game. And I want to believe that they're better. I don't know how much, because how bad is Temple? I know Temple's bad, but how bad? And that's my question. It'll be an interesting matchup. I don't expect Duke to be able to do what they did on offense to Northwestern. I think Northwestern showed in week 0 that their defense is legitimately much improved, especially in the front 7. And then I would be shocked if Duke held Northwestern to 179 yards of offense, especially after the outburst in week 0. The way that offensive line dominated the line of scrimmage, the way they gave Ryan Helinski all day to throw. I really like Northwestern in this game. But Duke did give me a little more pause with the fact that they went out and straight up dominated a game that I thought had an outside shot at maybe getting interesting. Little shocking that they looked as strong as they did. But we will break it down more as this week continues, and that's something to make sure you keep coming back, because we're going to really break down this Northwestern Duke matchup. That's going to be what we do this week. But yeah, you can follow me. I'm the host, Carter Bird. You can follow me at CarterBird13 on Twitter and on Instagram. Thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen for anything and everything Northwestern. Today's show is a little more of a recap, just because Northwestern didn't play, and so it's week 1 of college football. It's exciting, wall-to-wall games. I just wanted to talk about it with y'all. Make sure to leave a comment about what your thoughts of what week 1 were. But yeah, and we will be back later this week as we continue to look at Northwestern's second opponent, Duke, and what that game's going to look like. But again, thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's going to do it for today's show. I will see you next time.